Hello, Gary. This is Jamie Gilchrist from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a retired first responder. I've been working with Barbara Titus for years now on Hometown Heroes, and very happily so. Thank you, Gary. Speaking for all us first responders for sponsoring Hometown Heroes, it means a lot to us and our families. Additionally, I'm a beneficiary of a week at Boulder Crest. Thanks to your generosity, Gary. I'm here with my colleague, Jamin Shively, who's also been a volunteer for Hometown Heroes. And we are here to present to you a program called Operation Welcome Home, which we've been working on with Barbara, and which we would love your input, feedback, and hopefully involvement. Jamin?
Thank you, Jamie, and hello, Gary. I don't know you personally yet, though I feel like I know you because I've read your amazing book, Grateful American, cover to cover, loved it, and I love everything that you and Barbara and the Gary Sinise Foundation are doing for our veterans, for our active duty military, and their families. Thank you. Now, we are here, as Jamie mentioned, presenting to you Operation Welcome Home because our military, our veterans, and our veterans especially, and our entire nation need two things, both with high importance and high urgency. So before naming those two things, let me first just set the context here. We've got active duty military on the left, community of veterans on the right. So a service person will, spend their time in the active duty military on the left and then transition over to the right. So the things that are missing here are, number one, a formal rite of passage for transitioning our active duty military to veteran status and civilian life. And in addition to the 500 plus military personnel who make this transition every day, this would also be applied in a very special way, as we will discuss, to the 20 million veterans who have already made this transition to veteran status over the past years and decades. And the second thing that we need urgently and very importantly is a quantum leap forward for the community of American veterans. This quantum leap will, in particular, address the level of connection or connectivity provided to the entire veteran community, including qualified and certified service providers, volunteers, and other supporters, for example, from the VA, from the Gary Sinise Foundation, among myriad others. So here's the order in which we're going to present the following material to you, which is all mapped out right here. First, we're going to discuss the essence of point number one, the rite of passage. But just the essence, because before we get into the details of the rite of passage, we will next explore point number two, the quantum leap forward for the community of American veterans, where we will go into depth into both the essence and the details of this quantum leap forward. And then finally, we will circle back to point number one to cover the details of the rite of passage. Because, before we can properly detail the rite of passage, we need to be very clear about into what our veterans, young and older, are passaging into. So let's go ahead and get started with the essence of point number one, the rite of passage, but not the details. And then we'll carry on as I indicated. So the essence of point number one, the missing rite of passage. Speaking with our veterans, we have learned that really nothing of the sort exists right now. So when an active duty personnel is about to transition to civilian and veteran status, maybe they get like a 3-hour course, is what we learned from talking with recent veterans. A 3-hour course on making the transition to civilian life, but no rite of passage, no ceremony, no, and we'll get to the details of that later. But I first want to just tell a personal story. I can clearly remember my father telling me, Lieutenant John Robert Shively, telling me about how after 4 years of active duty as a naval officer in the Korean War, when he returned stateside and was honorably discharged, it was a huge shock for him. He went from being in charge of 125 men with massive responsibilities on the American destroyer, the USS Weeks, to going to a hotel room and basically sleeping for 3 days straight because he was so exhausted. And that was it. He was out of and away from the home and family and community of the United States Navy. And the meaning and purpose and mission that home and family had brought him and had defined his life for the previous 4 years, extremely formative years for such a young man. And now what? Who am I now? Why am I here? What is my mission? Where is my military family, my team? And as I'm sure you know, it is precisely in this transition zone, and specifically the 2-year period spanning the last year of active duty service and the first year of the return to civilian life, that the suicide rate among veterans and soon to be veterans is the highest. So getting this rite of passage right will literally save countless thousands of lives of our young veterans. Now, my father did not commit suicide. Thankfully, he had his loving parents and siblings to fall back on, and he was able to get on with his life in a productive, healthy way. But he was one of the lucky ones. So we'll talk more about the details of this urgently needed and at present completely missing rite of passage that we envision in a few minutes. But first, as we mentioned, we need to get very clear on into what our veterans passaging into. So that brings us to the quantum leap forward for the community of American veterans. So let's start with the essence of the quantum leap forward. Again, here's the map of it, the quantum leap forward, which is largely rooted in connection between our veterans and their supporters. So the essence of the quantum leap forward is really well embodied in this photograph. And I'll keep going back to this picture as it's worth thousands of words. Look at these beautiful faces. What do you see? I see gratitude and joy at being reconnected with fellow veterans and being supported by such an amazing leader and supporter of American veterans. That is you, Gary. And so I see gratitude, joy, camaraderie, connection. I mean, really, just take a moment and look at those faces. This is not just some, typical gathering. This is very, very special. And I remember my dad would fly back to Washington, D.C. to meet with his shipmates, once every so many years. And that was a very special connecting thing for him. Now, not everyone has the opportunity to fly back to Washington, D.C. and spend a week or 10 days there and reconnect. So this is something where the massive upgrade will apply to all American veterans. And I want to make an analogy between Operation Welcome Home and a Gary Sinise Foundation Rise Home. A Rise Home provides a vastly upgraded platform for the life of the veteran and their family, with built-in support for the physical needs of the veteran, as well as vastly enhanced capabilities and possibilities for connecting with family members, friends, fellow veterans, neighbors. You can now invite friends over to have a coffee. You can cook them breakfast. Now, of course, the veteran is still the same person before and after taking possession of and inhabiting their Rise home. They are simply given a much better platform in which to be that person, right? Excuse me here. Or are they the same person after getting their Rise home? After going through a particularly transformational life experience, you often hear someone say, I was not the same person after that. I've heard myself say that. So now, by analogy, The community of American veterans is still the same set of people before and after the quantum leap upgrade of Operation Welcome Home. Or are they? But just as with the veterans with the new Rise Home, with Operation Welcome Home, our entire veteran community will have a much better platform to be that community of American veterans and be connected and supportive of each other. Now, with much higher and richer levels of support and vastly enhanced capabilities and possibilities for connection. So, Gary, that is the essence of point number 2, the quantum leap upgrade for our community of American veterans. So now let's get into the details of point number 2. Let's focus first on the part of the quantum leap upgrade, which is connection or connectivity, as this is really the foundation of the quantum leap upgrade. And this will be centered around something very special, which we are calling the veteran Zoomosphere. Now think Zoom, but entirely for veterans. A completely safe space for veterans and qualified, certified supporters of veterans. Now, the vast majority of the supporters of the veterans will be veterans themselves, as we'll see, simply being there for each other, right? Creating community, building friendships, reconnecting, but in a vastly, literally quantum leap forward way compared with what we have today, which are basically scattered, fragmented in-person events that, many of which are just too far for veterans to get to for whatever reasons, or, frankly, too limited in terms of scope and with whom they can actually connect. But it's better than nothing, but this quantum leap forward. So let me get into the details of that. So again, this is the essence of the quantum leap forward. Now, for the details. Since 20 million veterans are going to have a very hard time all coming together in one physical location, as these several dozen veterans were fortunate to do, thanks to your generosity, Gary, and Liberty University hosting this event. 20 million American veterans are going to have a very hard time coming together in one physical location. I mean, that borders on the impossible, frankly. I mean, we're talking about a population of American veterans equivalent to the largest cities on Earth, Tokyo, Mexico City, etc. But with Zoom, literally every single one of our 20 million American veterans can come together under one virtual roof. Think of it as a gargantuan conference center, a virtual conference center, which will be the world's largest conference center, literally 1,000 times larger than the biggest physical conference centers on Earth in terms of its capacity. And imagine that in this virtual conference center, there are an unlimited number of Zoom rooms for veterans to meet on whatever topics and in whatever contexts and for whatever purposes they want and need. So these, 75 or 80 veterans will be able to meet on Zoom and then go into breakout rooms for whatever purposes they want. So the following are some images that I just got from the internet. So these are public images, just to give a flavor so that you can see there are myriad Zoom meetings happening by and for veterans. And this just scratches the surface, but let me, go ahead and just give some of these examples. So here we have a virtual support groups gives veteran an outlet for profound pain. This is from the VA. Online group therapy keeps veterans connected. Here's one specifically. It's called the Veterans Breakfast Club, the importance of listening to veterans and veteran storytelling. Now look at the faces of the people in this room. Every single face is telling a story right there, a story of happiness and joy at being reconnected and building new connections. Now, some will be much more practical, like here's a Zoom event for, showing veterans how to file their VA disability claim. Very important, this kind of online training. And just, veterans getting together with or without, lead supporters, shall we say. They can just get together and talk amongst themselves. Here's here's a Zoom meeting on a coalition of veterans organizations. Very important that these organizations get together on Zoom. Here's the Veterans Land Board in Texas. I don't really know what that's about, but I found the image. I mean, these just give examples. Here's an online support group that meets every Thursday night on Zoom, right? Sometimes we just need to talk to someone who understands. Join Loving My Veteran and talk about anything. And these are often open to veterans and their loved ones, friends, etc. Here's Texas Veterans Suicide Prevention Day from September last year. Here's one I really like, the Veterans Writing Circle that meets twice a month. Arizona State University happens to put this one on, and I'm sure there's lots and lots of veterans writing circles and courses and support groups and whatnot. So there's that. Anyway, the list goes on and on. I just wanted to share a few images from the internet and just kind of, but again, this is just scratching the surface. Now, how to get connected? Ideally, every American veteran will be gifted, and this will be part of the rite of passage that we'll get to in more detail. But imagine all 20 million American veterans being fully supported in accessing and enjoying this virtual conference center, or the Veterans Hemisphere, in that they would be gifted all of the hardware they need, like a tough book, ideally military grade, something special that kind of reconnects them to their days in the military, plus free lifetime satellite internet access, and even a solar panel to keep them powered up no matter where they are in the country or anywhere around the world. This is the kind of support that we're talking about for bringing all 20 million American veterans together. Now, this is the ideal, that each veteran be fully equipped in this way. The reality is most veterans have devices and internet access and whatnot. So we'll get to the details of exactly how to roll this out. But the bottom line is that every veteran will need really, really good access to be able to participate in the Veterans Hemisphere and all of its programs. Now, what will 20 million American veterans do once they are united and connected and supported in this way, all under one virtual roof, in which they can have an unlimited number of Zoom rooms to choose from, covering all topics and scenarios under the sun, and each veteran can create their own Zoom meetings, as many as they want, and invite whoever they want, including all veterans, to join. What will they do in this context? The sky is the limit. At the very top of the list of the priorities is support, period. Okay. What kinds of support? All the kinds that you know of and that you've pioneered and are supporting in so many different ways at the Gary Sinise Foundation, including counseling, support groups, crisis counseling and intervention, guiding veterans through the myriad forms of support the VA offers, helping veterans navigate the myriad forms of support beyond the VA, such as GSF programs, VFW, American Legion, and the countless nonprofits and local organizations who bring much needed support to our veterans. Now, beyond these myriad kinds of support as top priority, another very high priority is reconnection. Reconnection with shipmates, platoon mates, brothers in arms. For lack of a better word, I'll just say comrades going forward. Comrades of theirs from months, years, or even decades past. Veterans will be able to navigate through the hierarchy of structure of, their branch of the military. And so, for example, a veteran of the Army will be able to navigate through whatever sub-branch of the Army that they were in, for example, the Army Rangers or the Army Corps of Engineers, down through whatever division or brigade they were in during their period of enlistment, all the way down to the regiment or battalion they were a part of, all the way down to even company and platoon level. And by doing this in the context of the Veterans Hemisphere, they jump onto Zoom, They'll navigate through, and then they'll be able to see exactly what meetings are happening in the moment that they are searching, as well as what meetings are scheduled. There may be a reunion of their specific company scheduled for a few days out, which they can put on their calendar. A reunion or just a get together. Hey, we get together once a week. Why not? They can get together every day if they want. In fact, there will be some meetings that will be open just literally 24/7, some spaces. So for example, at least the division level, there will be 24/7 meetings where veterans will volunteer. Yep, I can hold the space from midnight to 6 a.m. I'm a night owl, and I'm happy to hold the space there. Minimum at the division level, if not more granular than that, as there are veterans who derive significant satisfaction, meaning, and fulfillment in providing the service to their fellow veterans, of keeping such spaces open for their comrades, precisely so that no veteran will ever feel alone when they're reaching out to their fellow veterans from whatever branch, division, and period of service. Okay. So, we've all met folks in the military and the veteran community who love to be connectors and love to welcome people and chat and share stories and say, oh, you're looking for Lieutenant Dan from such and such a company from the Vietnam era. Well, he was just here yesterday, and here, let me help you connect with him. And here's a calendar of all the upcoming scheduled meetings from that entire division in Vietnam from 1965 to 1970. Here, let me screen share and show you how to navigate it on your own whenever you want to. And if you'd like my help, I'm here to help. I'm here like, Monday through Friday from midnight to 6 a.m. or whatever, but there's always somebody like me here to help you. So you, brother, you just come anytime you want, and we're here for you. And if you want to schedule your own meeting with a particular focus, I can either show you how to do it or I can do it for you, right? So welcome home. Welcome home, brother or sister. So these kinds of reconnection scenarios within a properly structured and supported veteran Zoomosphere are going to be absolutely wonderful ways for veterans to reconnect with each other. In fact, the veteran Zoomosphere will be the greatest ongoing reunion party on Earth, 24/7, 365. Now, what we're talking about here, to look at the whole of it, is putting together the greatest reunion party on Earth combined with the greatest support system on Earth. And just think of the overlap here. The healing from being able to reconnect, to be reunited, especially in cases such as Vietnam veterans, who in general became quite disconnected from each other, disconnected from society. And, many, if not most of whom, literally went into a form of hiding from their Vietnam veteran status, right? This was really well covered in the Rick Burns documentary on Vietnam, which I'm sure you've watched probably several times, like I have. And they interview that Seattle writer, who they interview quite a bit, who said that for many years, he and his wife lived next door. They had these very friendly next door neighbors. And for years, they lived without actually making the connection that they were both Vietnam veterans. That's how much they had kept it, quiet and in hiding. And, and then finally, one day, the two wives were talking and it came out. But I mean, this is rampant among Vietnam veterans. And so the veteran Zoomosphere, in particular for Vietnam era vets, is going to be absolutely transformational and extremely healing. Now, think of all the other scenarios beyond support and reconnection, okay? There will be meetings that veterans will set up on hobbies, on volunteer activities, meetings on, real life, physical gatherings, whether in-person reunions, picnics, sporting events, etc., which would be helped by Zoom meetings for their organization, planning, and promotion. Veterans and their friends and family members of Jaga County, we're going to meet at this big park on this Saturday, potluck, whatever. Who's bringing the salad, who's bringing the drinks. Let's get this sorted out, and we'll meet there. Some of us are going to meet there an hour early and set up, all that kind of good stuff. Meetings for speed networking on Zoom, whether by industry or trade or just general speed networking. Dare I say speed dating? I mean, why not? meetings on topics of interest, whether they involve starting a community garden or ideas for reinvigorating VFW or American Legion facilities, and calendars of events, all the way to, how do we end war? Sports and entertainment and education. Some veterans may want to get together online to watch a major sporting event together, or watch a film together, or a documentary, and then have a conversation afterwards. And all kinds of other, what I'll call special interest topics, of which there's a boundless number, everything from UFO sightings to chess clubs to DIY groups to book clubs to, anything. So imagine each of our 20 million American veterans being able to specify, I would love to meet with other veterans on the following topic or topics. And then they fill in whatever topics they're most interested in, no matter how granular or obscure. So for example, I might type in other veterans who, like myself, are writing books about our experiences in Vietnam and post-Vietnam experiences. And then we run something very much like a Match.com for these veterans based on what they want to talk about. And if they want to specify further, they could indicate with whom they want to have these meetings. For example, other Vietnam veterans or other Korean War veterans or Iraq or Afghanistan, or simply veterans over 50, or perhaps single veterans, whatever. And then the results of this Match.com would be communicated to each participating veteran pretty much immediately, conveying, for example, there are 17,528 other veterans who, like yourself, are interested in topic X, which you specified. And here are a list of the existing recurring meetings in the Veterans Hemisphere, which you can join, related to topic X. Different meetings will take different kind of a different perspective or a different take or a different filter on topic X. And different meetings will happen on different days of the week and times of the day. So you can take your pick. You can explore, you can roam around, and you are always welcome as a fellow veteran. Now, let's say that you have a specific perspective and angle on topic X, which you feel is not adequately covered in the other meetings that you see on the list there. Well, you can create your own meeting on Zoom in the Veterans Hemisphere, which you could lead, and you pick the time, the date, and you can invite all the other veterans. And it's very simple to do that. And we'll make it very, very simple. And like I said, there will always be people 24/7 to help you do that and help you navigate through. And I can tell you, this is so easy to set up. I happen to have a tech background. The whole thing there would be just a vast and growing database of all of the, say, tens of thousands of meetings in the Veterans Hemisphere to which all veterans are invited. And so, just take that in for a moment, please. Each and every one of our 20 million veterans is going to be a kid in the biggest Willy Wonka candy shop ever imagined, of connection, reunion, support, reconnecting with old friends, making new friends, sharing life together in these beautiful meetings. People are going to be falling in love with each other, speed dating. You could spend, let me talk just for a moment about speed dating, because, over 90% of veterans are male. So, females are going to be in high demand. So imagine that we open it up a bit. So there's a Veterans Hemisphere, which is like a walled garden just for veterans, basically, and, qualified, certified supporters, as I've mentioned. And then there's the general Zoom. There could be kind of an in-between space, which could be highly curated, where, for example, as a veteran, I might invite my sister-in-law or my female cousins, who are single, and say, hey, I found out about this great speed dating thing with veterans. And only the non-veterans would be there, would have to be vetted by, someone inviting and saying, hey, I vouch for this person. That's the word I was looking for, vouch. So, and we could use similar kind of Match.com sort of, so that we get good matches from the get-go. And then you spend 5 minutes with each person you get paired up with. And if you like them, great, you follow up. If not, no problem. On to the next one, that kind of thing. Anyway, and beyond speed dating, like, let me just give another example. Some veterans groups that are focused on a specific topic might want to have an open house or a series of open houses where they connect with the broader community, where again, people are vouched for or have some process of filtering. So we're not just opening the doors up to anyone. For example, I would love to meet with veterans who are working on or interested in marine cloud brightening. It's a very niche, granular topic, but actually extremely important for the future of life on Earth, frankly. And so that's just one example. So there's myriad scenarios like this where we can, cross the barrier, if you will, between strictly veterans and, the greater American population. And so those are just examples. Back to the big picture. What we're talking about is putting together the greatest and richest space for support, reconnection, reunion, and making new connections among 20 million of the most special people on Earth, American veterans. This kind of begs the question, why hasn't someone put this together for our veterans already? The veteran zoomosphere. I mean, once you see it, it's so obvious. And we might be tempted to rush in and create the veteran zoomosphere as a standalone thing right now, immediately, before trying to integrate it with anything else. But we believe that would be a mistake because of the vastly enhanced potential of launching the veteran zoomosphere as a part of the larger whole of Operation Welcome Home, including the rite of passage and including some other elements that we will detail very shortly. So now that we've talked, in some detail about the quantum leap upgrade of the community of American veterans, including the veteran zoomosphere, let's conclude this portion of the recording by saying that the veteran zoomosphere will provide an essential foundation for the quantum leap upgrade of the community of American veterans. And there is more to the quantum leap upgrade than just the veteran zoomosphere. And we'll get to those elements shortly. But for now, let's double back to the rite of passage, which we discussed the essence of earlier, and get to the details of that. So we discussed the essence of the rite of passage earlier. Now we're going to get into the details of the rite of passage. And here I am with our other co-founder of Operation Welcome Home, Rod Whitmire, on the left. And he's a veteran of the Army, Vietnam era. And God bless Rod, because he's been working tirelessly for decades in service of American veterans. When he found out about the rate of suicide among veterans, he said, "Not in my country." And he founded Vets Meet Vets, a veteran support group in Western Washington with multiple chapters all over Western Washington. Later went on to found Operation Veteran Freedom and the National Alliance to End Veteran Suicide. And so when I heard about Vets Meet Vets and Rod's mission, I said, Rod, what if we throw in some welcome home boxes into the mix and properly welcome home our veterans? Because, he told me all about that critical transition period, that 2-year period. And I happen to have a lot of connections in the specialty food industry. And I was moved to tears calling up manufacturers and saying, hey, would you be willing to donate to veterans? And they said, my goodness, for our veterans, whatever they need, you tell me, Jamin, what do you need for our veterans? And I'll send it, totally free of cost. And so that inspired us to really think deeply about these welcome home boxes. And we got started right away. Here we are in Tacoma, Washington in 2010, giving welcome home boxes first to Vietnam veterans who had not been properly welcomed home, actually quite the contrary, as we all know. And then the Vietnam veteran. So on the left, I'm giving a box to a Vietnam veteran. On the right, that same Vietnam veteran is giving a welcome home box to a younger veteran returning from Afghanistan. And so this became the kind of the birth of the idea of the veteran guardian angels, generally, but not necessarily more senior veterans, gifting welcome home boxes to younger veterans, and then maintaining a relationship, a connection. Here's my card. I want you to call me anytime and love to follow up. And here's when I'm going to be on Zoom, on the Veteran Zoomosphere, and here's my home address if you just want to stop by. And you can see it in their faces. Everyone loves it. This is both an acknowledgement and a welcome home that is long overdue. And there's a significant undertone of atonement here. And from there, we started to dream into how big this could actually become and how to take this opportunity to really roll out the carpet for our veterans. And so for brevity, I'm going to fast forward to 2017, where we displayed the Operation Welcome Home concept at the Liberty Ball at the Library of Congress, to which we were invited by our friend, Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. Which brings us to the current central idea of the rite of passage, centering that rite of passage around a giant Operation Welcome Home box, as you can see on the floor there next to Rod. And inside the box would be specialty foods from all 50 states with a special label attached to each. So you see right up in front there, you see the jar of Adams peanut butter with a special label attached that has the Ohio state flag, and it says, "Welcome home, veteran." Ohio says thanks. "Welcome home, veteran." Iowa says thanks. Times all 50 states. And not just specialty foods, but comfort clothing, like wool blankets, socks, caps, scarf, gloves, all American made, so comforting our heroes. And also inside the box, you see circled in the upper left there, the Operation Welcome Home binder, which includes an index of all the programs for our veterans, programs for support, for reconnection. There would be detailed instructions there with screenshot printouts of exactly how to access the Veteran Zoomosphere. We'll make it super simple. And then with the Toughbook laptop, it would all be pre-configured for that. Just open it up and boom, you just jump right in there. Now, the next generation of this binder would be made of sustainable American hardwood, which Barbara Titus, I'm proud to say, pioneered for the whole industry. So she made up these binders for a program that Jamie and I have been doing for the Catholic Church called Laudato Si. And so in addition to the binders, the Welcome Home box itself, and this is just this is an image we grabbed from the internet, but we haven't actually built the boxes yet out of wood, but they would be big Foot Locker sized Welcome Home boxes made of the same sustainable American hardwood that Barbara pioneered. And now, in addition to a wooden Welcome Home box containing all the specialty foods and clothing, there would be a Welcome Home cooler with, refrigerated, foods and beverages that would be very sturdily built to really last forever and probably guaranteed. So anything goes wrong, just bring it in and we'll swap it out for you. And there are lots of, and then of course, the Toughbook and all the stuff that goes with it. And I think we're just scratching the surface here in terms of what we can, the generosity. And I talked about the American manufacturers being delighted to donate to our veterans. It's no secret that then they would get, credit in the marketplace from consumers and increased market share and brand loyalty for being so generous to our veterans. So it's really a win-win. Nothing wrong with that. The point is we get all this donated. So it doesn't cost anyone anything other than the manufacturers who are freely, generously donating. And so we want to center the rite of passage around the box. And part of the reason for that, and first of all, we don't actually want to call it a rite of passage because, then the Vietnam veterans would say, well, shoot, thanks a lot. 50 years late, you want to give me this rite of passage? No. So don't use that word, just Operation Welcome Home. Hey, we just came up with this great concept. Here, we want to give you your Operation Welcome Home boxes and gifts and Toughbook and everything. Better late than never. And here it is. And no one's going to, look at all negatively at that act of generosity on the part of the American people towards the American veteran. Now, on top of that, like those images that we saw in Tacoma at halftime during, a minor league ball game, we can have either public events at major league ball games, baseball, football, hockey, you name it, wherever the veterans, would want to receive their boxes. Many would want to receive them at home. Many, I mean, so there's a lot to be figured out here as to, the menu of options for where to do the welcome home ceremony. And so I'll just talk about a couple of details, because really this really needs to be fleshed out and detailed across many different dimensions. But one of them that we believe is vitally important is that the matriarchy be involved. Ideally, the mother of the veteran, grandmothers, aunties, mother-in-law, et cetera. Now, many veterans are fortunate to have all the above. Some are not so fortunate. So we need matriarchal figures, like, for example, Dolly Parton, to play significant roles in welcoming home our veterans. For example, Dolly Parton might show up at a major league football game and an NFL game, and at halftime sing a song, and then we have a ceremony where we welcome home a whole bunch of veterans and give them their boxes and whatnot. So these are just examples of so many things that we need to figure out, of different options and scenarios, so that the rite of passage, the welcome home ceremony, is deeply meaningful and personal for each veteran. So we've got a lot to do in that department. In terms of who to invite, and, to the extent possible, we invite friends, family, community, shipmates, platoon mates, et cetera. So hopefully we've conveyed both the essence and some of the important details of Operation Welcome Home, and equally important, the fact that we're just getting started here, and we could benefit tremendously from your direction, Gary, having been so many years and decades involved in all of this. So please jump in, tell us your best ideas, and again, ideally, please join us and be a part of this. More on this in a couple of minutes. And let me just get back to screen sharing, a couple more things here. So with Operation Welcome Home and everything included in it, notably the Veterans Hemisphere, the Operation Welcome Home box and ceremony, now our younger veterans will be properly supported, rise-like properly supported and deeply connected. And as they enter this properly supported and deeply connected community of American veterans. So these young veterans now have a beautiful future as a proud American veteran to look forward to. Welcome to your new family and your new identity as a proud American veteran with beautiful possibilities in front of you. There will be some sadness at separating from your military family, as there was for my father. But now, instead of being thrown out into a lonely world in which you feel disconnected and frankly unsupported at the level that they need, you are now instead landing in a beautiful, proud, and deeply connected and extremely supportive and supported community of American veterans. That's the essence of this great transformation that we're proposing, and that we would love your participation and leadership in, frankly. So now that we've covered both the essence and some of the important details of both the rite of passage and the quantum leap upgrade to the community of American veterans, now we can discuss the few missing and vitally important elements which will support both the launch and the ongoing operation of both the rite of passage and the quantum leap upgrade for the community of veterans. So next, we're gonna lay out our vision, and in doing so, our vision for kind of the missing pieces, and a lot of it centered around the launch. And we're going to take the liberty of including you, Gary, and Barbara Barbara's already involved, but we're going to take the liberty of including you, Gary, and the rest of the Gary Sinise Foundation in playing key roles in our envisioning here. And in so doing, we certainly do not mean to be presumptive or disrespectful in the slightest. We're simply laying out the best possible vision for Operation Welcome Home for our veterans and for their families and for our nation. And that best possible vision necessarily includes you, Barbara and Gary and the Gary Sinise Foundation, as each of you are totally unique fixtures in our country and very much needed here. So I hope I conveyed that clearly. So here's our vision. A national press conference, our vision for getting this started for the launch, which is extremely important. A national press conference, and again, I'm using this, my favorite picture here, as a stand-in for that press conference, announcing Operation Welcome Home to the entire country, led by you, Gary, Barbara, the President of the United States, the First Lady, the head of the VA, and myriad veteran heroes and other dignitaries. We're going to need a phone bank to answer the steady stream of phone calls coming in from manufacturers and companies and nonprofits across the country who want to get into the box. And in fact, one of my favorite dreams about this is that at the press conference, the President of the United States will say, I'm calling on all Americans to think inside the box. Whatever you've got to offer our veterans, get it inside the box. Here's the 800 number of the Gary Sinise Foundation. They'll go straight to the phone bank. Call them up, tell them what you got, and let's get it all together. Now, a few weeks after the national press conference, we would launch Operation Welcome Home on what we're calling day one. And on day one, we're envisioning the delivery of 1,000 Welcome Home boxes and 1,000 coolers to veterans in northern Tennessee. And we'd have 100 Welcome Home vans that would contain, 10 boxes each and 10 coolers each, and either a member of the Gary Sinise Foundation or a volunteer for the foundation, a senior veteran, ideally provided by the VA as the guardian angel veteran, and a celebrity. And these 100 celebrities, one for each van, would be selected by you, Gary, since you know which celebrities have been most supportive of our veterans. And so after the press conference, these 100 vans roll out of the parking structure with massive media coverage. And in fact, for each one of these 100 vans, there would be a media van following in tow and recording this historic event. And we see this as simply becoming the greatest American feel-good story since Neil Armstrong, walked off the ladder onto the surface of the moon. So again, day one, a second press conference, and the first 1,000 deliveries. On day two, we envision throwing a huge, huge national Welcome Home ball, allowing the country to come together to celebrate Operation Welcome Home, and celebrate the Veteran Zoomosphere and all that it brings, celebrate American veterans, celebrate the community of American veterans, now receiving a massive rise-like boost for all 20 million of them at once, which will be utterly transformational. And very importantly, speaking of the ball, we create a space and probably a separate Zoomosphere for supporters of veterans. I think that's pretty important as well. But so between the ball and the supporters Zoomosphere, we create a space for all supporters of veterans, which will ultimately be the entire country, to network with each other, to unleash the power of American innovation upon this noblest of noble goals and undertakings to support our veterans. And the emergent quantum leap upgraded community of American veterans. The entire country will embrace this greatest American feel-good story. And a huge chunk of the country will get directly involved in supporting our 20 million American veterans. I mean, there'll be committees county by county setting up to do exactly this. And we envision the Gary Sinise Foundation, and specifically you, Gary, taking the lead on Operation Welcome Home. You are the ultimate grateful American. You have such an amazing track record supporting our veterans that every American veteran loves you, respects you, and will respect your leadership of Operation Welcome Home like no one else. So the Gary Sinise Foundation taking the lead, you, Gary, being the face of Operation Welcome Home is very important. Now, Jamie and I want to be very clear that we feel very strongly that Barbara Titus would be the best person to lead Operation Welcome Home operationally. So in our ideal vision, you, Gary, delegate all the operational stuff to Barbara, and we, Jamie, Rod Whitmire, and myself would love to report to Barbara as volunteers, as will countless other grateful Americans. So, operationally, but you still be the face of it. You be the person who everyone thinks about when they think Operation Welcome Home. And when the Office of the President of the United States wants an update or wants to interject some input or request a special event honoring the remaining World War II veterans in Maryland or whatever, you, Gary, are the one they would call. So you take calls from, probably people you can count on one hand. The president, the vice president, the office of the vice president, the head of the VA, the head of the Joint Chiefs. And that's basically it. I mean, if the president of the Ford Motor Company calls and wants to speak with Gary, that gets delegated to Barbara and her staff. Let them take the call. And all that is to say is that this does not need to be a big time sink for you, Gary. Obviously, the more time you invest in this and the more you think about it, the better. But we understand that you're probably overcommitted as it is with all of your personal and Gary Sinise Foundation responsibilities. And we do not want you to be stretched beyond your means. So at a minimum, aside from taking those important phone calls and maybe, and then leading vital press conferences like the two that we mentioned for kicking this off, and other important events like, events for remaining World War II veterans, like I mentioned, aside from that, and even those events could be planned and coordinated in advance to coincide with your travel schedule that you would do anyway. So to put it in the most simplest terms, the most important thing, Gary, is that you be the face of this for our country, but that you don't take on any operational burden. And please leave that to Barbara and by extension to the rest of us who, again, would love to volunteer for the Gary Sinise Foundation and report to Barbara. And I think you could also do a beautiful job in a way, kind of in a director role, envisioning the press conferences, envisioning day one, the rollout, the media, the Operation Welcome Home ball. And finally, I just want to say all of this really constitutes a cultural transformation for our entire country. There will be so much joy. There will be tears. There will be gratitude. New friendships will be born. New businesses will emerge, like the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. And, we will all become grateful Americans. And, we cannot imagine what's gonna come of all this. But we're doing the best we can, and we'd love for you to join us in imagining this. We see this opportunity as singular. There is only one opportunity in history to do this thoroughly and to do it right and to launch this, and the opportunity is now. The whole country is aching for this, even if they don't realize it. American society is suffering from the lack of exactly this. I mean, what kind of society does not honor their warriors and heroes properly? I'll tell you what kind: a society in decline. And it is no secret that American society has been in decline. Launching Operation Welcome Home in the way we're envisioning here may not solve all of our problems, our country's problems, America's problems, but it is an absolutely brilliant and essential place to start. Again, the future is totally unpredictable. What will happen when 20 million American veterans come together and are fully supported and fully connected? I'm just going to pause it right there. Jamie, I'm going to pass the feather to you.
Ready anytime.
It's recording. Go ahead, Jamie.
Beautiful. Gary, this is Jamie Gilchrist again, and I really can't add much more to that, except to say that this is our best effort at looking at how to take Operation Welcome Home nationally and swiftly, as it's very badly needed. And we'd love your input. And you may have thoughts. You may have some people that have thoughts about this and how to change it, improve it, correct it, whatever. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you for your time to listen to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. Look forward to talking.